Well, there is one more panel, and let me explain the rationale for this panel. We've talked about the problem. We've talked about how to solve the problem. We've looked at the problem from the perspective of governments and the law and international organizations. We've looked at it from the perspective of media and from industry. But I spent, Matthew Goldhammer sent me last night all the notes from yesterday's sessions. We obviously haven't seen today's sessions yet. But there was a common thread that ran through those notes, and that was, this is all great, but we need resources. You know, at every level of this problem. There's not enough money for law enforcement. There's not enough money for prosecution. There's not enough money for prevention. There's not enough money for victim services. There's not enough money for any of this. And so we thought it would be useful to bring together a few of the world's leading philanthropists, heads of foundations, to talk about how we can take a problem that is really not on the global agenda. World leaders have lots of important things to focus on. This is not on their agenda right now. So the question is, how can we put it on the agenda, and how can we begin to influence? My friend Dorothy Roska talks about all the time that we need to build this issue into the funding streams of the world's leading charities and foundations. So that's the premise here. So we have brought together three remarkable people. And let me begin with Mary Healy, who is perhaps one of the exceptions to this rule. The Human Dignity Foundation is one of the world's leading funders in this area. You heard from Tim Morris of Interpol yesterday that it's the Human Dignity Foundation that's helping him build his capacity. So Mary is the executive director of the Human Dignity Foundation, and her chairman, Dr. Climax, is here as well. We're honored that you're here. It's a private foundation that works to enable children to grow up safe from child sexual abuse and harmful practices. Mary's worked in international development and humanitarian aid for almost 30 years with both NGOs and donors. And she also sits, or I'm honored to sit with her, on the board of the steering committee of the Global Fund to End Violence Against Children, the initiative funded by the UK government to this point, with the addition of support now from the Human Dignity Foundation. So our first speaker for this discussion is the Executive Director of the Human Dignity Foundation, Mary Healy.
Thank you, Ernie. Can everyone hear me okay? It's okay? Great. So, it is my absolute privilege and pleasure to be here this afternoon representing Human Dignity Foundation and to be part of this panel. I want to start just by echoing Benjamin Moore's comment from this morning, because we too, as you might imagine from our name, we are delighted that dignity is at the forefront of this Congress. Indeed, actually, when people hear the name of our foundation, they often comment on it. And usually what they say is, how come we often forget the very thing that underpins rights? So, love it or loathe it, the internet is here to stay. I don't need to repeat any of the statistics on the harmful effects. We've had incredible and pretty sobering input on that over the last 2 days. The problem of online child sexual abuse moves too fast to keep up with. It transcends all borders, and it is an extension of what is happening offline. That being the case, we could feel overwhelmed, but please don't, because there is hope. We have growing evidence of what works. We have an SDG target to end violence against children, and we have a global platform for action. That's pretty good progress in a relatively short space of time. So what next? At Human Dignity Foundation, we see 3 clear priorities, and they're all alliterative, really easy to remember and take home with you. The first, to respond to Ernie, is cash. The second is collaboration. And the third is connectedness. I'll check at the end that you've remembered. Okay, so in terms of cash, we need investment from governments, from the tech industry, and absolutely from philanthropy too. This issue needs serious funding, north and south, short and long term. As Milena from Costa Rica said in our working group yesterday, the long-term plan and the short-term plan start on the same day. That day is today. In 2015, sorry Antigone, in 2015, Facebook profits amounted to $1.56 billion. In the spirit of apportioning responsibility rather than blame, the question to all members of the tech industry is this: are you investing as much as you could and should in combating the disbenefits of the products that earn you billions? Proportionate investment from the tech industry is not just needed, it is a moral imperative. So, that short-term game we mentioned, that's it, right there. Getting the tech industry to redress the investment balance. Who's in? Anyone in? But it's not just the tech industry. In that same year of 2015, while Facebook made $1.56 billion of profit, less than $1 billion of overseas development aid were spent ending violence against children in any form, not to mind sexual abuse on or offline. That's less than 65 cents per child per year in the relevant countries. And meanwhile, estimates suggest, and I want you to really hear this, estimates suggest that the cost of violence in terms of impact is up to $7 trillion a year. So there's the long-term game, getting governments to make decisions for the future, not the present. The final piece of the funding puzzle is undoubtedly philanthropy, and that's both a short and a long-term game. Unlike the internet, Human Dignity Foundation has a limited life. We will end our grant making in 2021 and close our doors. I would love to think that the organising committee were spoiled for choice when wondering which private foundations to invite here today, but I know they weren't. There are but a handful of foundations that focus on child sexual abuse writ large, not to mind ones that address the online component. Potential philanthropists could reasonably ask, how will I know my money is having impact? To which I say, we're still learning what works, and we need your help to learn more and do more. Be part of the journey. It will make the destination much more fulfilling. If you want a practical example, I can provide a few. For example, our funding to Interpol, which has trebled the number of cases referred for investigation over an 18-month period. Child Helpline International, who are rolling out an e-learning programme to 4 countries to train counsellors on the problems the children are facing in terms of abuse online. These are really important. We all need to be better, so I'm not sharing those examples to say that Interpol or Child Helpline are great, and definitely not that Human Dignity Foundation are great, but to remind us all that with relatively small investment, real change can happen. As a limited life foundation, we consider it a priority to encourage other funders into the space. Whether you're a government or a philanthropist, there are mechanisms for you to be part of. Join us. We heard the perspectives from Africa and Asia today, and we particularly extend an invitation to philanthropy from the global south, where we know there's lots of money. Let's sit, let's talk, and then let's act. So that leads us nicely to the next priority after cash, which is collaboration. There's already a substantial amount of collaboration underway. There's the We Protect Global Alliance under the excellent leadership of Baroness Sheila and Ernie Allen. Thank you. There's the Global Fund to End Violence Against Children, a multi-donor fund of which Human Dignity Foundation is proud to be a part. And there's collaborative research across critical areas. There's tech collaboration, as we heard this morning, with Facebook using Microsoft's PhotoDNA technology. But it all needs to be better. Much of the collaboration that exists is horizontal, so the next step is to make it vertical. From the government, who's a member of the We Protect Global Alliance, down to a parish group working with children in Manila. Some countries, such as the Philippines, are really leading the charge by being a pathfinder country, a member of the Global Alliance. Their commitment is important, and their leadership is clearly evident, as demonstrated by Cardinal Tagle this morning. So now we have cash, we have collaboration. The final priority is connectedness. Connectedness comes in three ways. While we've been sitting here, our youth observers have been outside. And now they've kindly joined us to help me make a point, which is this. Digital citizenship does not sit in a different room. It's not there while citizenship is here. It's here. For our children, the digital and real worlds blend and weave in a way we can't even understand, or I definitely can't. So too must the citizenship that goes with them. That's the first form of connectedness we must support. Earlier this week, with respect to the academics in the room, I did a really unscientific study of 3 teenage girls on WhatsApp. They also happen to be my daughters, so I'm allowed to quote them. Okay, so how can we help keep children safe online, I asked them. Said the 17-year-old. It's kind of like schoolwork. We've been doing it all our lives, and it's a question of whether we choose to do the work or ignore it. Easy, said the 15-year-old. Work with children to build their understanding of the risks. But, David will be glad to hear this, don't make us afraid. And she said, above all, don't be condescending. Seems like she has a direct line, I think, to you, David. And interestingly, said the 14-year-old using one of those hands up emojis, I don't really understand the question. So right there in 3 viewpoints over a 3-year age span, we have incredibly different perceptions of what's needed. So that's the second form of connectedness, keeping children's voices and their participation at the heart of our actions as we move forward. The third form of connectedness is recognizing that online abuse is merely an extension of the violence that children experience every day. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. It shouldn't be addressed in a vacuum. There's a ready-made framework in Inspire, 7 strategies to end violence that builds on really good evidence from global leaders in the sector, from WHO to UNICEF to CDC. Therein lies the opportunity to join with other prevention strategies like David recommended this morning. So in conclusion, we have cash, collaboration, and connectedness. If we have humanizing paths to gain humanity. And in the words of, where is she, Baroness Sheila, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It's up to us.
Thank you, Mary. That was incredibly powerful, and more importantly, thank to you and Dr. Climax for your extraordinary leadership in this area. The Human Dignity Foundation is doing more to end violence against children and address these issues than any private foundation I'm aware of, and you're certainly congratulated, and hopefully the spirit of your leadership is catching, it's contagious, and that others will get the message and step in. So thank you for what you're doing. Our second speaker is a remarkable man. His name is Christopher Chuang. And Mr. Chuang is the co-founder and the chairman of the Aurora Borealis Foundation, which is one of the supporters of this Congress this week. The purpose of the foundation is to explore practical ways that enable human civilization to adapt to the changing dynamics of environmental, ecological, technological, social, and political systems. He is active in dialoguing with top thinkers, scientists, social entrepreneurs, and politicians. For example, he is an advisor to President Xi Jinping. His aspiration is to build an international alliance of sages and what he calls a think and do tank that transcends national and commercial interest. And let me just interject that we have been really pleased and honored this week to have such a significant representation and delegation from China, including a delegation from the Cyberspace Administration of China. So for the Chinese representatives and the Chinese government who have been with us this week, we're honored by your interest and participation. Zhu Jingyi told me that the Chinese Baroness Shields are ready to sign on to We Protect. So I think it's an extraordinary thing, and certainly much of that is due to the leadership of Mr. Chuang. Now, translating for Mr. Chuang will be his daughter, Teresa. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Christopher Chuang.
各位下午好。
So good afternoon, my companions.
我应该讲说各位同道好。
So I call you my companions because we share the same path. That is 同道 in Chinese.
AV Foundation 呢是在2年前我们新设立的一个基金会。
So together, my colleagues and I, we founded this Aurora Borealis Foundation 2 years ago.
延续我12年来在中国的一贯的理念跟执行的这些细节工作的内容。
This is we founded this foundation to realize my 12-year vision to another dimension.
我希望能够从国际上的非常先进的朋友有很多的技术，有很多的很好的心态，很多的制度，能够帮忙中国，然后用中国的成长的正面的力量来帮忙这个世界。
And the reason why we have set up this foundation is to invite all of you, all countries, all my friends, to help China, to help the world with China's growing positive force.
我是出生在台湾。
I was born in Taiwan.
然后到东南亚10年然后再进入中国20几年。
And I spent 10 years in the Southeast Asia before I moved to China, mainland China, where I've been living for more than 20 years.
然后在英国学了1年的英文，但是现在不敢讲了。
So I stayed in the United Kingdom for 1 year to learn some English, which I'm still very shy to speak.
35年前我开始做社会工作，开始从募款开始。
So I started to be a philanthropist by starting with fundraising 35 years ago.
所以如果讲到募款我可以讲很久，但是今天时间有限。
So actually, I could use all my session to talk about cash.
所以最后呢，我现在每2个月都有开一次座谈会或者大的论坛首先我都告诉我们的团队一定要先从想怎么募款
So even now, we have a seminar or a forum every 2 months, and I always remind my colleagues that you have to know how to raise funds.
所以我对于怎么样为接下来怎么募款来支持我们这么样一个伟大的一个行动我是很有信心的。
Therefore, I'm very confident to say that I know how to raise this necessary fund for this great cause.
因为我在这2天，我看到了，我学习到了，我们这是一股非常强大的力量。
Because I find myself among an amazing group, I've learned so much from all of you during the last 2 days.
而且是一个完整的整合起来，是一个完整的力量，是一个非常能够有动力的一个平台
So you are a very, very powerful and holistic group that has built this momentum.
尤其是我们小组这2天的小组会议非常的精彩，我非常感谢他们给我的很大的一个鼓舞跟启发。
And I'm very particularly grateful for my group that has given me a lot of inspirations during these last 2 afternoons.
我们主持人非常精彩，还有我们每个成员都非常精彩。
Yes, Baroness, Bevan was great, and all of you were very touching.
线上我们有很多的专家，很多的专业人员，很多的在各个领域的非常有影响力的人员。我想， 主办单位一定准备好，怎么样把我们这个线上的活动呢，能够更好的持续跟发展下去。
So there are so many experts and professionals here, and I'm sure that the organizer is prepared to carry on this momentum through a multi-dimensional dialogue.
同时呢，我也注意到线下我们的内心的一个动力流动的状态。
So if we call that an online conversation, I've also made observations that there's something happening online, which is within our hearts.
我们下午我们讨论到，如果我们开完会之后解散了，大家回到自己的岗位上面，还是做各位本来的事情的话，那我们这个力量就分散了。所以我们需要有一个线下不断的去联系，去把我们的心、把我们的意念同时在流动的这样的力量，要让它产生出来。
So we were talking about in the work group that if we all, after this forum, Congress, if we just close the door and move on, and so this momentum will dissolve. Therefore, we need to keep this flow of inspiration going, of motivation going.
所以，为了要达到这样的一个目标，同道的目标，我们需要更紧密的来支持我们主办单位。
And therefore, in order to support this vision of Tongdao, that's companionship, we need to really give bigger support to our organizer.
我们要黏住他，不能开完会之后他们就把我们抛弃了哈。
So we need to stick to them so they won't neglect us and leave us behind after the Congress.
我想，我们现在所面临的世界，其实我们跟孩子一样，是一个新的一个网络世界。
I really feel that children are not just another age group. We are children as well. We are children in this new digital era.
我们都不能够去真正了解这个网络的世界对我们、对孩子，它到底产生了什么样的影响。
We are also young and learning. We are yet able to grasp what this digital era is really having an impact on us.
因为孩子不是他们。孩子是我们生命的一个部分，一个共同的生命的一个部分。
So children are not just children; they are a part of our lives.
如果说我们跟我们的孩子们共同来去讨论，来面对这个网络的世界。
So if we are able to talk with our children, to learn with them, to share these concerns with them, to talk openly with them.
也许我们会从孩子中得到很多的反馈，跟我们跟他学习的很多的他的一个灵感跟想法。
We'll be able to have a lot more of reflections from them and feedback.
当然，他们也会教我们怎么样去募款了。
I believe that they could also teach us a way to raise funds as well.
我们有一个很好的 partner， 他儿子就开始教他募款了。
Because a colleague of us who's here, and her son is already teaching her how to raise funds.
而且很成功的募了款，帮我们解决了一次论坛的事情了，好几十万人民币啊。
And through this son's new idea, we could raise funds to sustain one forum of us. That's about 1 million RMB.
他发动他的同学，那跟他同学的家长讲，我们要办一件很好的事情，是一个生态社区。结果他所有的家长呢，都捐助他的儿子，儿子就把钱捐出来。
Because this young man was very brave, and he shared with his colleagues that, hey, you know what? We have this great initiative in China. We are building an eco community, and in order to expand this community, we invite you to be part of us. So for this opening event, why don't you donate us some money?
其实呢，我想从我们内心里面，我想我们都是一个生命体啊。
I believe that I have to concur with that connectedness, because in our hearts we are one community.
我们必须带这个感觉啊，回到我们自己的生活的工作的地方啊，那继续把这个力量继续扩大。
We are of the same destiny, and we shall go back to our homes, to our workplaces with this feeling.
我的工作地方在中国大陆。
I'm based and I'm working in mainland China now.
我相信带着今天我们大家共同的一个结论，配上可能已经 准备好的很多的总结的材料，或者未来要去宣传的影片，把我们这2天的工作精神、工作的内涵、工作的所有的这些流程等等，能够变成一个很有效率的一个说明的工具。那我们的团队在中国大陆会非常快速的，而且很可以大量的发挥，来支持我们的这个共同的生命体继续能够传播扩大下去。
But when I go back to China, I'll be able to absorb all of your conclusions, ideas, and I'll take with me these videos, materials, and the program, and all of your spirits to back home. And this will be such a strong tool to share with my colleagues, who will then in turn support this initiative.
我常常告诉我被我募款的对象，一个说法，我不知道是不是正确啊。
I always see my sponsors as this is how I see them.
我跟他们说，我举个例给你们听，教会那么有钱了，为什么教会还要募款？
So I always encourage them or motivate them through this narrative that I explain to them. The church is very wealthy already. Why do they still need funds, need the support from all of us?
我给你们机会，给你们做好事的机会。
Because they are educating you to become a philanthropist.
他们都接受了。
And they did that really
我是给你们机会，不是跟你们伸手募款。
Yeah, because I'm not asking you for money. I'm giving you this opportunity to become a greater person.
结果大家心就连在一起了，因为他们为好事而捐助的，不是为了企业省税金而捐助的。
So when they donate because of this greater cause, not in order for a tax, they become happier.
非常的有效，因为从人性上，我想大家都愿意朝向正面好的这一面去发挥。
So that is a really effective narrative, because inside our hearts we have this bright side of our humanity.
所以345年的募款啊，我们成立了很多个基金会，做了无数件这个很好的事情啊，包括岛内这个 UNDI 这个 HE 啊等等很多，我们捐助很多的单位。
So in my last 35 years, through the funds I raised, I set up a number of charity foundations. I sponsored a number of initiatives of the UNDP.
UNHE 都有很多，我们赞助很多单位，都是这样的一种从内心打开的方式来劝募，而且在这个劝募的过程里面也产生合作的共体，我们讲同道，然后一起去进行我们要去进行的目标。
So through this explanation to them, through their donations, we become a platform. We become a very connected body, a community.
我们把可持续发展带进了中国。
We introduced sustainable development into China.
我们在中国建立了汉王论坛，把防灾减灾、灾后重建的大平台，然后联系起来，把很多的欧洲的朋友、精英们专业人员引进到中国。
We set up a congress called Hanwang Forum that is to educate Chinese renowned leaders about disaster mitigation and post-disaster reconstruction.
当中国对很多的这种很敏感的事情有所约束的时候，我们都是可以畅通的，都是可以大发挥的。
We have introduced so many of our international friends to China, so they could finally talk to each other. And therefore, when China finds itself not unable to speak freely to the outside world, we become the channel.
我想，当各位我们都在一起，有一个很好的方案，有很好的新年轻的这么一个队伍，然后我们绝对可以把我们现在想做的事情，从线上到线下，都能够按照进度来完成。这是我的35年的经验。
Therefore, I believe that with a wise approach, with a connected team, we are able to realize this vision, this mission, either online or offline.
所有的责任已经不在于某些专业的单位、研究单位、政府、国际组织，而在于我们必须要用我们的心联系到我们每一个人的这种周遭所有的朋友，而甚至于进入到他们的家庭。
We do not only hold the government, the institutions, the tech companies accountable, but we engage every family. We approach them.
这是接下来我在中国要进行的工作。每一个家都有小孩，中国有8000万个这个留守的儿童等等啊，都有小孩，大家都会关心这些事情啊。当把这个关心转化成为非常有力的力量的时候呢，那我们这个队伍就会好好的施展各位的专才。
Each one of us must open our hearts and give our compassion to our children, because every family, also in China, has children. We have 80 million neglected children in China.
我相信我们一定会成功。
So this is time that we give our compassion to these families, to these children, and I believe that we will be very successful.
我讲这个话是有根据的哈。
Of course, my confidence is justified.
因为我在进行所有的事情之前呢，我会进入到一个大的宇宙意识的状态来分析观察，然后来想到这个未来的进行的可能性。
Because every time before I embark on a journey, I connect myself with the universe. I carry out a very holistic observation.
在中国称为道。
And this is what we call Dao in China.
谢谢各位。
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chuang, for being here and for your commitment to the cause and for your extraordinary leadership in so many ways. So we're honored by your presence. Our third speaker, you met earlier, but he's one of the organizers, member of the steering committee of this organization. Dr. Thomas Gauly is the founder and managing partner of Gauly Advisors. He's worked as a manager and strategic consultant for business and financial industries. And he's also been a very significant player in the philanthropic and foundation field. He's been a member of the Herbert Kwan Foundation Executive Board, spokesman for that family. He sits on the board of a number of charitable foundations, and he speaks today in his role as vice chairman of the Clariant Foundation in Switzerland.
Thank you very much, Ernie, for this kind invitation to talk to you, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I have to confess that if you have asked me 10 years ago about what you're doing here and what kind of organizations are here, I would say 5 to 10 years ago, I would have said I have no clue about it. So please let me start with a general statement about why our foundation, and I'm now here as the vice chairman for the Clariant Foundation, why we are supporting this Congress and why we are supporting the efforts. It's very simple. The reason is because we are now deeply convinced that the protection of minors is one of the most important responsibilities of our society, and that there's no better way of working for a healthier, more peaceful, better world than investing in our young generations. The pioneering World Congress for Child Dignity here in Rome puts the rights and the protection of children at the heart of their intention, and I personally very much have the hope that it will create a great momentum outside the church, outside this Rome, outside the Congress. Because we should not leave it all to discussions. That's what many people like, especially in foundations. We like to discuss the issues, but when it comes to actions, sometimes we miss it. We should take this unique chance here to send out a call for action in the direction of key stakeholders and international leaders from all relevant areas, and we should take action ourselves and get engaged in collaborations and initiatives that are committed to fight against sexual child abuse and child protection in the digital world and beyond. I'm very grateful to have the chance today to present to you one specific initiative, the Clariant Foundation, which I'm honored to be the vice chairman. The Clariant Foundation is an independently managed non-profit organization that was founded by one of the world's leading specialty chemical companies, and it's based in Switzerland. Our mission is to support children and teenagers in different life situations. We act on a global scale and carry out local projects all over the world that strengthen the rights and the individual development of children and youth. The Clariant Foundation has supported the Center for Child Protection, the host of this great congress, for many years now. We are deeply convinced that its work matters in academic as well as in practical terms by preventing and providing information for the protection of minors in close contact with victims and survivors from all over the world. We as a foundation see that the Center for Child Protection performs great work empowering those who have been or could be harmed and creating a global network of knowledge and best practices for child protection in the online as well as in the offline world. And we as a Clariant Foundation also value the aspect of raising awareness for the still widely tabooed problem of child abuse by publicly discussing its consequences, its dimension, and its solutions. In the morning, I said in the morning session, I said that we tried to catch other companies, other foundations, huge global organizations, and ask them, please join this conference and please give us some cash, some budget for this conference. And many of them told us, no, we don't want to. Yes, it might be interesting, it might be an important issue, but we don't want to be connected with its issue. And I think we have to change this. So just a word about, beside the Center for Child Protection, we are supporting some other initiatives, 40 projects globally. I would like to mention some of it, just to give you a flavor about what you can do to support children. One is the Kinderhilfe Emmaus Bern in Switzerland that is organizing children's sponsorship with developing countries. Another is the Foundation Child and Family in Switzerland, which takes care of children with special and serious diseases. Another is the support for the school adaptation program in Indonesia, where we are enhancing teachers' professionalism with on-the-job trainings. Another one is in Africa, in Ghana, the Angel Soccer Academy, which I like most, where we promote talented children who play soccer, offering them a better perspective for their lives and enabling to visit a public school and having a safe home. Furthermore, we promote children orchestras because we believe not only in sports but also in music, which strengthens the children, support the integration of refugees, offer scholarships to talented students, and support a lot more great and innovative projects that help to give children worldwide a better future. We talked this day on the day before a lot about problems and how to solve it. But if you are engaged in such a kind of foundation, at the same time you see that there are so many people involved in a positive way. They're doing a lot for it, and it's great to see how many people are involved and supporting our idea. Now today, a good promising future is inevitably connected to the individual's access to the internet, as we know. That is true for adults as well as for children. There are tremendous chances for development due to the internet, as we can reach far more people, especially in developing countries. With the internet, they can take part in online learning courses or even get medical examinations. Yet along with offering a fascinating new way to connect with the world, the internet also offers new risks, such as sexual abuse and exploitation, but also the risk of becoming a victim of cyberbullying and cybercriminality, or the risk of internet addiction, loss of human touch, etc. That's why engagements in child protection should nowadays not only focus on the online, but also on the offline world, but have to address the chances and the challenges as well of the online and the offline world. Within the supported projects of the Clariant Foundation already strengthens these issues. For example, the education projects that we support include the distribution of digital devices and promote cyber education and cyber responsibility, where children, teachers, and parents are getting the knowledge and skills they need to safely use the internet through special training and education resources. And I think that's of importance that we tell to the people who use the devices, there's good and bad, but we have to explain it. In the morning session, we heard something about ethics, media ethics, cyber ethics. I think this is what is needed. Now, the challenges of the digital age should be discussed broadly, especially in those countries who are digital countries, who are moving the digital age, like the so-called developed countries, the Western countries, the United States, but also China. China plays a really great, important role in the digital age. If you look on the top 10 companies in the world, the IT companies, the digital companies, there are around about 5 American and 5 Chinese. No European, by the way, no European. And the question is, who are the drivers behind these companies? What are the values? What is the foundation of these people? What is behind them, besides making money? They should make money. I don't have any problems with it. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm also interested in gaining money. But the question is about the values. And therefore, I'm very happy to have our Chinese friends here on the table, because we have to talk about that. Internet is a global, and so the values we share should also be global. So we desperately need to foster the positive aspects and stem the negative effects and risk of the worldwide spread of the internet. So on behalf of the Clariant Foundation, I would like to thank very much the host and the partners of the Congress, and I'm pleased that so many people will help to mobilize action for better protection for minors online. We are sure that Congress sets a milestone in this compelling fight, and I personally hope that this Congress will create a great momentum. That not only means us, the non-profit organizations, but also and especially the profit-oriented organizations, because these are, again, these are the real drivers of the digital age. It's not we, it's not the non-profits, it's the profit organizations, like the Apples, the Googles, the Microsofts, and so on in the world. We need them on the table. So thank you very much for your attention, and all the best for your work.
Thomas, thank you, and thank Mary and Christopher, and of course Teresa. Thank you for being here. Let me also recognize Leonard Stahl, who's here, who is one of the great leaders in philanthropy, as the editor of Philanthropy Age. So Leonard, we're pleased that you've been here all week and been a part of this process. So we have work to do. Now, one more item on the agenda, if I excuse the people on the stage. I'd like to ask Baroness Sheila Hollins to join me. Baroness Hollins, I think most of you have met, is a renowned psychiatrist, is a member of the British House of Lords, is a member of the Pontifical Commission on the Protection of Children, and of course is one of our workshop leaders this week. And Baroness Hollins and I were asked by Father Zollner to do a brief review of sort of highlights from the working groups. So she and I pored over the results that Matthew Goldhammer sent us last night. She's going to cover half of the topics. I'm going to cover half the topics. So, and recognizing we have all of today's content still to look at. So this will give you an idea of sort of common themes that are emerging out of the working groups.
What a challenge. Thank you so much. Well, I'm going to start at the beginning because on Tuesday, Joanna Shields said that historians looking back at the digital age will say that the web changed childhood in one generation. And she challenged us, saying we will be judged. Did we do enough? And as well as the declaration to Pope Francis, there was hope of finding ways to develop future joint programs of work to create a digital world which is fit for children. And participants have been commenting on the value in the connectivity that this Congress has provided and have been applauding the Pontifical Gregorian University for taking responsibility for bringing us together on this issue and by working with We Protect. And this recognises the intercultural collaboration that's needed between governments, law enforcement, tech companies, civil society, academic researchers, media, and, of course, religious leaders. No one sector is responsible alone. Cardinal Parolin commented that in many underdeveloped nations, parents and educators are no longer culturally equipped to accompany their children and to help them grow in this world, and that their governments don't often know where to begin in protecting them. And he said the digital world is an integral part of our world, and digital natives must be prepared to understand and address today's challenges. Well, many participants are, of course, personally and professionally interested as parents and grandparents. I'm a mother and a grandmother. I expect children to have safe areas to play, and the internet needs to be a safe area to play too. Archbishop Gallagher drew attention to his realisation that a child is no longer safe in their bedroom as there are no longer any walls or boundaries to keep him or her safe. So yesterday we focused on research, on offenders, prevention and intervention, the negative effects of pornography on children. And today we've been focusing rather more on solutions. I've attempted a very quick overview, a first cut of the working group reports, if you like, and I really thank the note takers for their diligence. I'm going to focus primarily on the medical, social and educational initiatives and some of the proposed actions that have emerged. Some participants seem to see a dilemma between focusing efforts on preventing perpetrators or on protecting children, but both are needed. The primary focus must be on prevention and early help when children are abused to reduce long-term harm and to recover their dignity. From my perspective as a doctor, an academic and a health policymaker, one important insight for me is that this is a public health opportunity as well as being about children's rights. A crime against a child is a crime online or offline. So the tobacco analogy. In the United Kingdom, after years of campaigning, our government has finally introduced serious measures to reduce the number of children who start smoking. We talk about the tobacco endgame. So if we can remove tobacco from children's lungs, can we remove porn from their brains and child porn from the minds of abusers? What can we learn from the tobacco campaign to inform and engage the public and politicians? And one of the key messages that was repeated time and again is that these must be co-created with children and young people. With public health leaders joining forces with other health prevention programs, perhaps finding core messages as part of a well-being agenda, not just about internet risk, but including suicide prevention, bullying prevention, and issues to do with self-image. Recognizing that the public doesn't want to know about the taboo of child abuse, forming the public's conscience to see these issues as important would be vital. Okay, so only the state can legislate, but people could use parent power on social media to demand accountability from companies who are corrupting their children, companies who are encouraging and enabling oversharing. We could demand that companies start using their skills to prevent children from using the internet for extended periods and at night. I'm told the technology is there. We could draw attention to particular populations at risk and the windows in which abuse most typically occurs and ask companies to find ways to protect them. Young people must be involved in devising education and messaging directed at them. They want to be part of the present and to shape their future. Remember, we heard that today. Never forget, a crime against a child is a crime, so we need to educate the adults who use child pornography. The responsibility should not be put on the child to keep safe, but on the adult not to commit a crime. And we also need to educate parents, teachers, doctors, and others, raise their awareness, and help them acquire new skills. We mustn't expect parents to do everything. especially, we heard, that many parents work long hours, all hours, to feed their children, who are often being left with caregivers. There's a major concern of teachers. Tech devices keep kids awake all night, and they arrive at school tired, with low mood, preoccupied, anxious. This is not just about sexual abuse. It's also about learning to use this resource wisely. We considered what is the right pedagogy for teaching about internet safety. What should the educational content and context be? It should be included within expertly taught relationships and sex education. That education must be informed by science. Many programs for children have been successfully evaluated and they work. That's good news. They've been shown to reduce bullying, improve bystander behavior, reduce risky sexual behavior. And we heard some of the key factors that make that possible. And with respect to education, we need to share what works, and we were introduced to many free resources. There's been a call for spending on research and ongoing evaluation to prevent sexualized violence against children. Interdisciplinary, intercultural research that's translated into practice, into action. It's hard for researchers to keep up with such a rapidly changing scene, and the questions need to be carefully framed and reframed. We saw on Wednesday how difficult it is to understand data when it draws on different populations. Researchers are calling for agreed definitions, validly tested instruments, and sampling standards and terminology that all sectors can apply uniformly. But first, we need to agree what the outcomes are, the right questions to ask then, using both qualitative and qualitative methods in different cultural settings. There's still such a lot we don't know. For example, why is the use of child pornography increasing? Why is 83% of the material on the dark web child pornography? Why do people think it's okay to have sex with children? And some difficult questions were asked, such as whether people who fantasize but do not act out should be treated differently than those who do. Personal values are being challenged by online community pressure on social platforms, posing a real threat to self-determination. Policymakers can't create evidence-based policies without data, but the existing data is incredibly powerful, even down to the harm caused to children's brains, and growing evidence about the contribution of abuse to the etiology of mental illness, chronic pain, pregnancy complications, and even the effect on maternal bonding when a mother breastfeeds with a device in her hand. One of the challenges presented by an entrepreneur in my working group was that we already have the data. We just need to present it to the young entrepreneurs, the millennials who want to make a difference so that they can come up with the solutions. Well, secular and religious organizations have often had tensions, but they must work together in our shared world, for example, in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. There's been a call to all faiths to echo the message that education about the internet as an integrated part of life, not something out there to be avoided, is key. This message would go down to the parish level if the Pope endorses it. That's important. We need to put things in perspective and not see the internet as a thing to be afraid of. In part, children will need to be digital natives to achieve their potential. As one Catholic father put it, if my children are affected by this problem, they're inhibited in their ability to develop character and virtue, to discern a vocation and function healthily in every aspect of life. I don't have time really to talk about the help that hurt children need, except to say that people have pointed to the need to remember the important roles of child helplines, identification, reporting, rescue centres, and therapeutic responses. The needs of the child are paramount. And don't forget that hurt children may become hurting adults, in two meanings of the word. So a to-do list began to emerge. Lots of ideas for tech companies. I'm not going to go there. But our young observer in my working group, from Colombia, a 23-year-old, wrote her own account, her own reflection last night, and it will be circulated with the working group reports. She asked us to continue to shine a spotlight on our negligence and to seek hope for the future. So, other to-dos, a newsletter and/or online forum to disseminate information about quality-assured programs, evaluations and connections. A roadmap for health and welfare services, for appropriate mental health care services for people hurt by abuse. That the 2030 goals for the United Nations will require data collection in each country in order to verify that progress has been made. The leading researchers should convene after this conference to establish preliminary definitions and guidelines for sampling and data capture. A holistic study to consider anthropological, philosophical, psychological, cultural and theological aspects of child dignity. Thank you, Cardinal Taglier. My group said this is an idea whose time has come. Disseminate the Guide to Action for All Religious Leaders that was launched in May. And after tomorrow, ask the Pope to write an encyclical on the importance of a digital environment fit for children. Ask him to add to the guidelines for bishops' conferences and religious superiors to make all Catholic organisations, churches, schools, Wi-Fi safe places everywhere in the world. So to conclude, a future worth building is one that includes and protects everyone, including the most vulnerable. Children and adults with developmental disabilities mustn't be forgotten. They're between 3 and 10% of the population in different countries. They are at very high risk of being abused. We haven't heard about them this week. But also those who've already been abused, those with mental health problems, using drugs or caught up in environmental or other disaster. We must never give up. We must believe and persuade others that we can prevent abuse. Hope and trust and positive stories will achieve the world we want. And it's true. Research shows that giving is good for our mental health. Thank you.
Now, I want to add a few more things. Baroness Hollins focused on several areas. I focused on a couple of others. Before I do that, I want to acknowledge our dear friend Cosimo Ferri, senior official in the Italian Justice Ministry, who was the man who signed Italy's commitment to join We Protect. Cosimo has joined us, and we're honored to have you here. So briefly, and what I look for were themes that appeared consistently over the 10 groups. And I'll do this quickly. On the terminology issue, which Baroness Hollins mentioned, the one point I would add that came up a number of times is that this is not one issue, it's multiple issues. And as we define the terms and come up with the language, we need to make sure that everybody's measuring the same things. Second category that Baroness Hollins and I agreed that I would look at is the whole issue of law and culture. And the consistent language that appeared throughout the reports was that overwhelmingly current governmental responses are grossly inadequate, that our laws are old, our laws are poorly enforced, and that law is not enough. Particularly in much of the world, this is far more an issue of culture than it is application of law. So, key point that appeared over and over again was the important role of the faith community and hearing the voices of religious leaders. And having said that, following the session, I'm very pleased that our friend Major Donna Humaid Al-Marzouki, who from the Interior Ministry in the United Arab Emirates, is here. And Major Donna came up, and the UAE, through its Interior Minister and its Deputy Prime Minister, has offered to host and convene a follow-up summit to this summit, which would convene solely religious leaders, faith leaders, from the Islamic world, from the Buddhist world, from the Christian world, from the Jewish world, So I think it's really introduce Major Donna to Rebecca Rios-Cohn of Arigato International and the Global Network of Religions for Children. Rebecca is very interested in this, wants to collaborate, so this would be a next step from this Congress focusing solely on mobilizing leaders of the world's great religions. So I think it's extraordinary development and really buttresses what you said in your working groups. Another issue that appeared a lot about the law is that we have national law attempting to address and solve a multinational problem. And that there is, even though there are international treaties and conventions and protocols, there was discussion of issues like exploring the idea of universal jurisdiction or expanding jurisdiction beyond solely national law. Lots of you discussed the question of how to better regulate the digital environment. It is not enough simply for companies to basically say this is not touchable. We need to explore in a limited way some ability to better regulate. Great concern about reporting mechanisms and frankly the absence of reporting mechanisms in many countries. Virtually every report buttressed the discussion that was raised yesterday about the fact that it is simply not acceptable for young children to be able to access adult content on the internet. And it's clear that the traditional approaches, meaning filters and parental education, not only have failed, but have failed miserably. So the issue that appeared over and over again is how do we do that technically? Are there better solutions for that? On the issue of offenders, there was discussion about the need for triage. Many of you heard the message that we can't possibly arrest and prosecute everybody. So one of the key questions is how else do we address this short of solely a law enforcement response? In the tech area, you heard a lot of this from Baroness Hollins, but let me make a couple of points. One of the groups quoted Cardinal Parolin, who said, technology is a part of life, not separate from it. So I think that was really the context of a lot of what we got. A number of you said companies need to tailor their services when they know the user is a child. There needs to be, and I know some of that happens already. And then there was a continuous theme of the importance of innovation. Praise for what's been done, but need for innovation to keep kids from accessing adult content, need for innovation to build cutting-edge tools like Thorn has done in terms of the dark web, tools for law enforcement to better penetrate the new technologies, and recognition that this is a continuing cycle, because as new technologies emerge, inevitably, and law enforcement has to catch up. On the question of photo DNA, and Jacqueline made a very powerful presentation on that, but in a number of the discussion groups, the point was made, it's great that 130 companies are using photo DNA. It ought to be 10 or 50 or 100 times that much. And it's great that the major U.S. internet companies are doing it, but this is a global phenomenon. So there's a strong mandate to expand the use of photo DNA, and not just in the ISP and social media space, but one group talked about photo storage companies and sort of variations on that basic theme. One of the points that was raised is it possible to mandate the use of a tool like photo DNA, particularly in the developing world? And the point made a number of times of the need for doing these technical solutions short term, but to really focus on the whole question of digital citizenship, as a long-term answer. Then in the issue of awareness, and this appeared virtually every report, and the clear consensus was governments around the world have lots of compelling priorities, whether it's climate change or the migrant crisis or, fill in the blanks. This issue doesn't appear on any of them. And challenge number one, many of your reports said, is simply to put this issue on the agenda for the world's leaders, to make it a significant priority for every country on the planet. I know many of you are working toward that. There was great consternation about the fact, Tim Morris's presentation, that there are only 52 countries that are on the International Child Sexual Exploitation Database of Interpol, the world's primary law enforcement network. Tim was proud of the growth to 52, and he should, but there are 192 countries that are a member of Interpol. So that's a significant issue. And the key message that appeared in terms of awareness is, how do you do prevention if you don't have awareness? On the issue of prevention, a couple of key themes. One was the importance of early intervention with prospective offenders. Another one, I think echoing what Elizabeth said to us yesterday, was we have to do more in the area of prevention than target hardening. We have to do more than risk reduction. It has to be a far more comprehensive approach to prevention. A couple of groups suggested public awareness campaigns. So people like Dr. Gauly in the communications business, we need to think about, public awareness campaigns are expensive. How do you do something meaningful, targeted, that might actually work? A lot of discussion of the role of media, echoing what Mario Calvo Platero told us earlier today, that media doesn't really tell this story. What it does is tell the extreme stories that then distort in the public mind what the problem really is. So how do we engage the media in a meaningful way as part of this? A lot of talk about the need for greater communication and coordination, concern about silos, organizations competing with other organizations in the space. How do we maximize what everybody does? And then the single theme that I saw most often, buttressing what our last panel focused on, is to do this we need resources. So those are the highlights from my review. Father Zollner, you want to give us our...
Yeah, thank you very much, Baroness Hollins and Ernie Allen. I don't want to add anything more because we have had a long day. So all of you should have received this invitation card. We'll have a final reception concluding our works and our celebrations at 6 in Hotel d'Inghilterra, via Bocca di Lione 14. That is close to the Spanish Steps. So you will receive a little map. It's more difficult to reach that spot by taxi or by other means than on foot. So all of you who can walk there are invited to do a little stretching and walking, which anyway will be good for all of us and our health. So we are grateful to Telefono Azzurro that they will host this closing ceremony. Tomorrow morning, all those who want to attend the papal audience are supposed to come at 10:30 to the fountain that is when you face the St. Peter's Basilica. When you look at St. Peter's Basilica, there are two major fountains. And on the right-hand side, we would meet at that fountain. Then we would go through the security check and then walk up to the Portone di Bronzo and enter there to the Sala Clementina, where if anybody has difficulties walking up quite a number of stairs, please identify yourselves because we would need to find other solutions. Please bring with you your identity cards and this the badge that you have received. Okay. Thank you very much for your patience, and we'll see each other in an hour's time. Thank you.